Hello all, so this is a quick video about making this pair of simple clamp racks, and along the way, in a needs must situation, I discovered a neat advantage my angle jig for the MFT has over the mitre saw, or even the table saw and mitre gauge. More on that shortly, so stay tuned. The two new clamp racks will be made from this one. Made to store just my parallel clamps and a handful of F-clamps, it was kind of overbuilt, so it has some material to spare. And the reason one rack is becoming two is that my MFT workbench used to sit centre workshop, so with the clamp stored on it, easily accessible from behind. I now prefer it back against the wall, so all these clamps need a new, easily accessible home. So here's the old clamp rack unscrewed, and I'll be keeping the existing parallel clamp slots and the original back for wall mounting. The top shelf will be a new rack and get its own back for wall fixing, and they'll both use this elm for some nice looking support struts. Here I'm cutting a couple of backs or wall mounts for the new rack. I don't have any 25mm MDF left for full length, but a couple of these short lengths will do the job. While I'm at the table saw, I'm cutting the centre from an old elm log plank and halving this other thicker piece of elm. My saw is well capable of doing this in one pass, but it has the cross-cut blade in it while the rip cut is off for sharpening. So the original rack and back is going back together how it was originally. I wasn't sure quite how I was going to use the material initially, but now I have a plan. It's getting its original screws back in. Before putting the back on the new one, I need to gather up the rest of my clamps from their various stash spots for a count and a measure of their foot and bar size. After which I can lay out the markings. I reached for the Jigosaurus to cut the slots. You could do a much neater job by drilling the rear of the slot and then just using a good handsaw for the slot sides. Handsaws fly through MDF. Not so much drill bits though, so I settled on doing it this way, rough and quick. Swipe left if you ever see that on a dating app. I'm using the 3mm thick Mafel Cunex blades here, so two straightish cuts give me the perfect slot for the quick clamps. The wider slots for the G clamps, done just like that. All those cut, I can now attach the new back. So the back is 100mm, the rack 140mm. So the angles won't be 45s, as I want the edges of the supports to just about meet the edges of the rack. So I mark the angles with a pencil. I use the protractor on my combination square to gauge the angles, and I have 34 degrees top and 56 degrees for the bottom. I know these will be right as they add up to 90, the back and rack being set square. I give the racks a fresh coat of white, which I can dry while I cut and prepare the elm supports. I have my variable angle fence attached to the MFT here, and I set it just by using the protractor referenced off the cut line scored in the bench top by the saw. I do sometimes reference off the right side fence using a sliding bevel too. I have a video on this variable angle attachment if you're interested. So with my mitre saw out on a job currently, I had the option of using this setup or my table saw and mitre gauge. As you'll see though, the second angle cut on each support is on a very small piece of timber, dodgy enough to hold on a mitre saw, never mind a table saw. The benefit I have here is I can use the guide rail to effectively clamp the workpiece, a particularly useful feature as the pieces get ever smaller. My angle fence, including its top mounted fixing bar, stands 25mm tall, so I use a scrap of ply to lift the work above that height, allowing the rail to clamp unobstructed. Results are perfect. So here's the real test, whether it will hold the very small workpiece for the second angle cut. Well, that is a perfect fit, no gaps. I use this piece to template the second line on the rest, cut and pack away. So yeah, this seems a great way to mitre tricky small pieces of work, using the guide rail and weight of the saw to clamp the workpiece. That didn't really occur to me as a feature when I made it, but there we are. The fact that the work, large or small really, is clamped makes it really safe too. I don't think this replaces a mitre saw or anything, but it certainly has its uses alongside one, like in this instance. As with the recent cabinet and footstool builds, the natural wood elements get a rub down with some of Leo's Carnauba wax, bringing out a rich colour in the elm. I then tack on all the wood supports with superglue. This holds them fast while I pre-drill from the top and back, and then they can receive their screws. And that's them complete. A very simple build, but fit for task, and gave an opportunity to demonstrate a little more of my MFT angle cutting fence. Just left for me to wall mount them and get the clamps from under my feet now. I don't use it very often, but that this Bosch FlexiClick drill comes with an SDS attachment is such a bonus sometimes. This being a rough block wall, I can take the easiest route to mounting. Holding the rack in place, I shallow drill the centre hole to mark the wall. Drop the rack and drill to full depth. Add a plug, then lightly screw in the fixing. Set for level, then drill mark the remaining holes. Move the rack to expose the hole marks, drill them out to full depth, then plug again. Level, then fix. Perfect every time. I think they look alright those. Shame you won't really see them when they're covered in clamps. I've started whitewashing everything I make in the workshop just because it's such a dingy space otherwise. Really helps brighten things up, making the most of the light. As like I said, a super simple build, but another job ticked off for the workshop, making all the clamps easily accessible, and I hope my sharing it has imparted 1 or 2 nuggets of interest along the way. Comments and questions, if you've any, most welcome below, even if it's just a hello for the algorithm. Like if you did, sub if you aren't already, and as ever, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.